Hello and welcome back to another Friday night. I am Rafael de Furia here in Rovigo, Italy, and today just wanted to talk a little bit about what people are feeling here. What's the situation? What is going on and how people are feeling about the next steps? As some of you may know who have been keeping up with my channel and world news, that we are now here in Italy currently in phase 2 of our lockdown. And how has phase 2 really changed from phase 1? Well, from the outside it doesn't feel so different. It still very much feels like we're on lockdown. But if you caught my interview this week with KTVU Fox 2 in the San Francisco Bay Area, you may have heard what I mentioned, that earlier this week it was announced that on the 18th, the government will be allowing things to open up. Here in Rovigo, to my understanding, we're waiting for the final approval to be able to do so, because each region is going to be deciding what it wants to do on its own. But what is that going to look like when things are let up on the 18th? Does that mean lockdown is over? Before we get too much deeper into this subject, if you would like to see more content like this about moving to Italy, Italian dual citizenship, and living life abroad, please be sure to subscribe with that notification bell turned on. And if you could also give this video a like, it would be greatly appreciated. And a huge thank you to those of you who are helping to make videos like this possible on Patreon. Okay, so on the 18th, no. Lockdown will still not be over. It's just going into phase 3 of lockdown. We still won't be able to travel from region to region. We still won't be able to travel anywhere, really even outside of our towns and cities. They're talking about allowing that to happen in not too long from now. But how is that going to look like? Well, at least on the 18th. So far in this next phase, one of the biggest changes really seems to be the ability for people to go sit out and go grab something to eat or coffee. But it doesn't mean that restaurants are opening up and that things are going to go back to normal, that things are going to go back to be the same way. What it's looking like is that there's going to be severe limits on how many people are going to be able to be inside of a restaurant or be at a cafe. I'm just about to get up to the main piazza here in Rovigo, because there's a place over here that just set up its tables for what looks like how things could be in the near future, and it's very strange. But as an example, it's going to be necessary for people to sit 2 meters away from each other. They're going to limit the amount of people that can be in one place at one time. And so even there's a restaurant here that, if I forget the exact numbers, but they normally can accommodate about 70 people, or 68 people, I guess. But because of the social distancing rules that are being put into place, they will only be allowed to have a maximum of 18 people in their restaurant at any given time. And I've been talking to local business owners and just people that I know here, and one thing that seems to be a common thread is people are saying, how can a business survive like that? Like a big place, how can a place like that be able to get by and survive through all of this situation if they can't get their customer base back? Because even, I'm just about here right now, there's a bar, cafe kind of place right here on the corner, where in normal times it would be packed full. At one table, you could easily see 12 people, 20 people. It's just a 1 by 1 meter little square table. But here's the situation now. So 2 tables for every 2 people. Normally, in normal times, this would all be packed. How can a business survive like this when they have to be so limited in the amount of people that they can serve at one time? How can that happen? A lot of places right now are kind of between a rock and a hard place, where they can't afford to be open, but they can't not afford to be open. And some of the sentiments I've been hearing from locals is that they're a bit frustrated with the situation, very understandably so. But at the same time, there's that same sense of, well, we kind of have to just do this. We have to follow the rules. We have to do what we're told at this point, because what other option is there? So people here, especially because here in Rovigo has been, from what I've gathered here in this little area where I live, we haven't been hit as hard as many other places. There have been some places that have had 0 reported cases. But for us here, we've just had a very low number. And actually, we haven't even had a new case for, if I'm not mistaken, more than a week now. Which, thank God, let's hope it stays that way. Even though things can be okay from the perspective of health. It's talking about physical health. What about financial health? Because there are already businesses that are not able to get by right now. There are businesses that can't open their doors. There are businesses that can only operate minimally. And so this, of course, is something that is starting to weigh on everybody, because not everybody can work, and the few people that can work may be in fields where they rely on other people, like they have a store or they have a restaurant, where they have to have that customer base that works with them directly. And if your customers can't pay for your services, then how can your business survive? It's been locked down here so much that even there have been a number of protests. I know across the street here, there's some restaurant owners who've been very vocal about their opinions about the situation. Even getting supplies has been difficult for some shopkeepers and restaurant owners. But when will things go back to normal? When will businesses be able to operate normally? That's a big question. Nobody really has a good sense about when that can actually be, because this is all we're in completely unknown, uncharted territory. Everything at this point, it's all guesses. But yes, it is understandable that we do still need to be careful for the next while, and that maybe there are certain behaviors that should be adapted for moving forward in the future so that something like this doesn't happen again. But then there, of course, have been questions about numbers and so on. Even you can see here, I won't show it because I don't want to put someone's number out there for the rest of the world to see. But some places, thankfully, have been able to, if they haven't been able to be open, they've been able to do online orders or telephone orders. So, yes, some businesses are adapting. But even I went to go get some gelato the other day, and their business has not returned to normal by any means, because fewer people are going out, and because you can't stand there, you can't really stand around. People don't want to even. They just want to. People are still concerned. So even going back to the interview that I did earlier this week about how are people currently feeling about the situation here, I would say it's a combination of things. On one hand, people are excited that they can go out of their homes now. But on the other hand, they're very frustrated because you can't really do much. There's very few places that are open, very few things that you can do. You can't go out of your town. You are limited to your area that you live in. There's no such thing as just going shopping, just going to the mall, just going out for a walk even, because we are still required to carry our self-certification papers. So it's not that you can just go out of your house. You need to make sure that you are covered. And there have been so many of these self-certification forms so far that it's been difficult for many people to keep up, because a lot of people, of course, don't have printers. But they have been relaxing things a little bit more, thankfully. And even for this current update that they made with the new self-certification form, they said, yes, it's okay if you have the old one, that'll be fine. Because basically throughout this whole thing, it's been the same certification form. Nothing has changed in that way. Nothing really major has changed other than maybe slight little details that are on there. But anyway, I need to head home, and I will pick this up back when I get there.
All right, now that I am back here at home, let's talk a little bit more about this. there's other aspects to what will be happening coming up on the 18th to combat the situation that I was talking about before, with businesses not really functioning in the same way as before and losing out on a lot of business. It was announced the other day that the government has decided to introduce a stimulus package. And without going into so many of the details, it seems as though it will come into effect on the 18th. And at this point, I can't help but wonder if the amount of money that they're talking about is really enough to make a difference in an economy that was stagnant for so long. And also, one of the other things that they've talked about with trying to help the situation, it's something that I don't understand, and I don't understand necessarily the relation to boosting the economy, is that one of the other things that has been spoken about is giving work permits to undocumented persons who happen to be here in Italy. With how many people in Italy to begin with are unemployed, and with the unemployment problem that already exists, I can't say that it makes sense to me, but I'm not saying that it should or shouldn't happen. It's just something that I can't necessarily say that I see the connection between the two. I definitely need to look into it more, and so that I can understand what the logic is behind it. But just right off the bat, from just reading briefly about it in the news, I'm trying to understand how it will help the situation here, because my assumption would be that it may have the opposite effect of helping the situation. But if I'm wrong about that, of course, I'm more than happy to admit that. It's just something that we'll just have to see as time goes on, how things go. But the other thing, just the last thing that I've been hearing a lot of talk about here in Italy, and a lot of complaints about from people all over the world, the masks. They are the worst. Having to wear a mask, doesn't matter if it's a surgical mask, if it's a FFP2, FFP3, N95, N99, or whatever certification level of mask that we're talking about here. Breathing is important, and I feel as though now going out to try and get fresh air is not a thing. It's like if you go out, that's when you get the least fresh air now. Even with the mask that I had to purchase last week, the one that you saw me wearing after my last mask had broken, just earlier this week, I was out doing some errands and I started getting really lightheaded. I started getting dizzy, and I realized, because that mask didn't have a release valve on it, I realized that probably I was getting a big buildup of CO2 in the mask. And of course, that's clearly a dangerous thing. It's not okay for that to happen. I mean, you have to be careful when wearing these masks. People say they help. People say they don't help. People say they don't protect you. They protect the people around you. So if everybody's wearing them, then you're protected just because of that. But a lot of people only wear them under their nose or below their chin when they're walking out. So it's kind of like, well, if not everybody is wearing them the same way, then what's the point? It's just, I don't know. But there's so much mixed information. It feels as though that whenever I turn on the news, whenever I get onto the internet, whether I decide to consume news or not, I feel like I get bombarded with it anyway, and with what's happening in the situation. And every time it always feels as though somebody's pointing the finger at somebody else, saying, this person is lying, that person is lying, this person is lying, that person is lying. And in a world where everybody is calling the other person a liar, how do you dig up the truth? Where do you dig up that truth? Anyway, thank you again for joining me on another Friday night, and especially a huge thank you to those of you who've been helping to make these videos possible and helping to continue this project go along. It really does mean so much to me that you guys have been doing that. So thank you to all the Patreon supporters. And of course, if you would like to see more content like this about moving to Italy, Italian dual citizenship, and living life abroad, please be sure to subscribe with that notification bell turned on. And you can also give this video a like and share it with your friends. That would be greatly appreciated, because it does help out the channel. And of course, as always, I'm Rafael di Furia, and I will see you all next time. Later.